As a developer, I often encounter situations where I want to get alerted when my code throws a specific exception that's written to a log. In this video, I'll show you how to configure Dynatrace's OpenPipeline to watch for specific patterns in your observability data, transform it into a problem event, which you can then use to trigger automated actions such as sending a Slack message or opening a pull request. By the end of this walkthrough, you'll know how to configure OpenPipeline for log ingestion, define a pipeline that triggers when your log data matches a specific condition, ensure you configure a corresponding dynamic route for your pipeline, and lastly, verify the resulting problem appears in the Problems app. Let's get started. Here's what you'll need to try this out on your end: a Dynatrace environment with OpenPipeline access, the right OpenPipeline configurations permission in your Dynatrace policies, and an application or service that sends error logs to Dynatrace. We'll be using a simple service running on Kubernetes that's generating error logs. The core idea here is straightforward. OpenPipeline can inspect every log record as it streams in. We'll add a Davis event processor that watches for a specific matching condition and converts those matching records into problem events automatically. No manual dashboards or alert rules needed. The intelligence lives right in the pipeline. From your Dynatrace environment, press Control or Command plus K and search for OpenPipeline to navigate directly to the OpenPipeline settings, or you can also get there via the Dynatrace settings, then selecting Process and Contextualize, and select OpenPipeline from the menu. The next screen shows all the data types you can configure pipelines for. We're working with logs, so we'll select the Logs option. In the first tab, you'll see all the ingest sources for logs that we can process. In this case, our logs are coming from one agent. Select the Pipelines tab. You'll see any existing log pipelines listed here. We're going to create a new one. Click the plus pipeline in the top right corner of the table to add a new pipeline. Give it a clear descriptive name. We'll call ours Arc Store Problem Event. When this pipeline executes and matches our condition, we want to create a problem event. So we'll click on the Davis tab to set up the event. The first thing we need to do is add a Davis event processor. Click on the processor dropdown and select Davis event to add the processor. Then give the new processor a name. We'll call it Send Exception Event. Now is the part where we define the matching condition, which causes OpenPipeline to match the ingested log to our specific pipeline. In this example, we'll set the condition as follows. We'll use matches phrase and the kates.container.name to match our Arc Store backend container running in our Kubernetes cluster. We'll also use matches phrase and match on the content of the log and look for any string with exception in it. You may want to refine your specific use case further, maybe checking for a specific error type. This is DQL syntax that tells OpenPipeline to match exceptions in the log content that's coming from the Arc backend container in our Arc e-commerce store service. Next, in the event template section, give the event a name. This will be the name used when problems appear in the Problems app, so it's best to use a name that describes the problem. Event properties can also be configured, such as event.type. We'll set this to error event. This tells Dynatrace to treat the triggered event as an error condition, which will open a problem. It may also be helpful to configure the event severity by setting the event.severity property. This gives a consistent way to classify and act on problems across your observability workflows. The event.severity field is stored in Grail as an integer from 1 to 5, with 1 being the highest severity level, and is readable in Dynatrace as a human-readable label, with 1 being critical, all the way down to 5 as informational. You can also configure additional event properties like event.description, log.content, and others. Check the docs for more details on configuring the event template. Now scroll up and click Save to commit the Davis event rule. The pipeline is now live. Any log from the Arc backend service with content containing exception will immediately generate a Davis problem event. Next, we'll see how we can set up a dynamic route, which will give you the option to route your ingested data into a pipeline with a matching condition. Navigate to the Dynamic Routing tab and click the plus dynamic route in the top right of the table to add a new dynamic route. Give it a name and a matching condition. We'll use the same matching condition that we set in the prior event configuration, matching the Kubernetes container name and the exception string in our content. Lastly, in the pipeline dropdown, select the pipeline we just created in the last step and click Save. Now let's trigger our pipeline we just created. We need to push some error logs into Dynatrace that match our pipeline condition. In a real scenario, this would be your application throwing exceptions as they're created. For this demo, we have a load generator running, which simulates error logs coming into the service. If we look at the pod logs within our Kubernetes cluster, where our app is running, we can see an example of the logs that will be ingested and passed through the pipeline we just created. Okay, there are errors flowing. We'll give it a short period of time for Dynatrace to ingest the logs, run them through OpenPipeline, and for a problem to be created. Let's head to the Problems app to see if the problem event has been created. In the left navigation, select the Problems app, or press Control-Command+K and search for problems. And there it is. A new problem has been opened. It has the title we set in our Davis event rule, and clicking into the problem, we can take a look at what's there. Problem event shows the event type, in this case an error event, the impacted infrastructure, process and Kubernetes pod where the exception was thrown, all of the error logs in context, and all of the event properties we set along with some others. This is the full power of combining OpenPipeline with problem events. The logs aren't just stored, they're acted on in real time. So let's recap what we built today. We created a log pipeline in OpenPipeline scoped to our store service. We configured a Davis event rule that fires an error event when an exception's thrown. We triggered the condition by simulating a burst of error logs. And finally, we verified the problem appeared in our Problems app with full context into the entity involved. And thanks for watching. If you found this useful, feel free to check out the links in the description below for additional resources. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover in a future how-to episode, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Thanks.